While I was recovering from spinal surgery, my teenage son, thinking I was dreaming, told a friend on the phone, "Mom has decided that as soon as she gets the insurance money for Dad, she's getting a divorce and we're moving to California. She's already looking for a place through realtors." I continued to take the pills and follow the doctor's orders, hiding the fact that I had heard everything. Yesterday, her 72 desperate voice messages made it clear fear was taking over. Look, I'm not the kind of guy who usually dumps his personal drama online. But right now, I'm sitting here staring at my phone, seeing 43 missed calls and even more voicemails from the woman I've been married to for 19 years. I guess writing this out might keep me from doing something stupid. So here goes. 3 months ago, my life flipped upside down. I slipped off a scaffolding at work and wrecked my back bad enough to need surgery. 2 herniated discs. One pressing so hard on a nerve that I couldn't feel most of my left leg. The pain was, honestly, it felt like someone was jackhammering my spine 24/7. My doctor told me I needed spinal fusion, screws, rods, the works, and even after the surgery, it would be at least 6 months before I could even think about returning to anything close to normal life. Financially, things between me and Claire were already rough. We'd been arguing about money for years. She always wanted more. Bigger house, newer cars, vacations I simply couldn't afford. I'm not going to sit here and act like I was perfect either. 5 years ago, I made some bad investment choices and lost about 30 grand from our savings. Claire never really forgave me for that. Even though we acted like we moved past it, deep down the resentment stayed. Still, when the accident happened, she did what a wife was supposed to do. She drove me to my appointments, picked up my prescriptions, even helped me to the bathroom during those first brutal weeks when I couldn't even wipe my own damn self. But something felt off, like she was just going through the motions, checking boxes. I told myself it was the stress. The insurance company was dragging their feet on my claims. Bills were stacking up, and I figured we were both just overwhelmed. Then came that Tuesday afternoon, about 3 weeks after my surgery. I was in the recliner in our living room, half drifting in and out of consciousness thanks to the pain meds. Claire thought I was totally knocked out. Usually after an oxy I was dead to the world. But for whatever reason, that day I was stuck in that weird half-awake, half-asleep zone. Our son, Logan, came downstairs, dropped onto the couch across from me, and started fiddling with his phone. A few minutes later, he answered a call. He kept glancing at me, probably making sure I was still asleep. I kept my breathing steady, eyes closed. Years of pretending to sleep when Logan was little taught me how to fake it pretty well. That's when I heard it. Logan laughed and said to whoever was on the other end, pretty sure it was his buddy Mason, that they might have to skip some concert they'd been hyped about. Then came the words that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. "Yeah, dude, probably won't even be here by then. Mom says once Dad's insurance settlement comes through, she's divorcing him, and we're moving to California. She's already talking to realtors there." I can't even explain the feeling that punched through my chest, like someone had dropped a concrete slab straight onto my ribs. I stayed completely still, forcing myself to keep breathing evenly while my whole world imploded in slow motion. Logan kept talking, totally unaware I was awake, telling Mason how Mom was tired of dealing with all of Dad's stuff, and that she'd been planning this for a while now. That she'd already found a few houses in San Diego and even talked to Aunt Rachel, Claire's sister, about getting a job at her company out there. I just lay there, frozen, not from my injury, from pure, numbing heartbreak. After Logan wandered back upstairs, I managed to push myself upright and promptly threw up all over the carpet. Claire found me like that 10 minutes later. I blamed it on the meds and she just cleaned it up, brought me water, smoothed my hair back from my forehead, smiled at me. The whole time I was looking at her and thinking, who the hell are you? Here's the thing about being bedridden. You have nothing but time. Time to think. Time to remember. Time to replay every suspicious look, every hushed phone call, every random afternoon when she said she was running errands, but came back hours later smelling like expensive wine and somebody else's cologne. I didn't confront her. Maybe that makes me a coward. Maybe it makes me smart. I don't know. But I needed to be sure. I needed a plan. Because if what I overheard was true, then the insurance settlement, $675,000, according to my lawyer, wasn't just a financial blessing. It was a loaded gun pointed straight at me, so I started playing dumb. When Claire helped me to the bathroom, I'd ask her about her day. She'd talk about errands and insurance calls. Totally normal stuff. But I started noticing little things, like how she'd step out into the backyard to take certain phone calls, how she'd slam her laptop shut when I wheeled into the room, how she kept her phone tilted just enough so I couldn't catch a glimpse of whatever she was doing. One night, pretending to be knocked out by meds, I managed to swipe the shared tablet we used sometimes for browsing. I pulled up her search history. Best school districts in San Diego. Cost of living California versus Midwest. How to transfer house deed after divorce. I nearly shattered the thing against the wall. Instead, I texted my buddy Mark. He went through a brutal divorce a few years ago. He always said his attorney was worth every cent. I asked if we could talk. Mark showed up the next afternoon while Claire was out with Logan at soccer practice. I laid it all out, every ugly detail. Mark didn't sugarcoat it. You need to lawyer up. Quietly. Now. He handed me a card for a guy named Carter. Divorce attorney. Specialized in cases where one spouse tries to screw over the other before they even know what's happening. That night, while Claire slept soundly beside me, I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. I wasn't going down without a fight. The next morning, after a night of practically no sleep, I made the call to Carter's office. Obviously, I couldn't drive yet. Hell, I could barely shuffle to the bathroom with a walker, so we set up a video call instead. Carter didn't look like much. Just a regular middle-aged guy in a plain blue shirt, glasses, and a tired face. But when he spoke, man, you could feel the edge. He wasn't someone you'd want on the opposite side of a courtroom. I told him everything, the conversation I overheard, the sketchy search history, the looming insurance payout, my physical state, drugged up, half-crippled, totally reliant on the woman planning to gut me financially and bail. Carter just kept nodding, taking notes like it was all standard fare. When I finally finished, he leaned back, tapped his pen against his notepad, and said, "You're lucky you caught this early. If we play this right, you'll be ready before she even realizes the game's changed." He mapped out the plan for me in simple, brutal steps. 1. Stay quiet. Act like I knew nothing. Keep her thinking I was clueless and helpless. 2. Document everything. Times she left me alone too long, conversations, anything about money or future plans. 3. Secure the finances. Get full copies of every financial record, bank accounts, credit cards, retirement accounts, going back at least 5 years. 4. Open a new account at a different bank. Move what I could without tipping her off. 5. Change beneficiaries. Especially on my life insurance policies. Claire was still listed as the primary. That had to change. 6. Make sure the settlement check couldn't be cashed without both our signatures. And add as many security hoops as possible at the bank. It was overwhelming, honestly. I was barely holding myself together physically, and now I had to pull off some kind of covert operation from a damn recliner. But Carter promised to guide me through every step. The hardest part was keeping up the act around Claire. Every time she helped me out of the chair, every time she brought me my meds or rubbed my shoulders like she cared, it took everything I had not to flinch. Not to scream at her. Instead, I smiled. I thanked her. I played the grateful husband she expected. And all the while, I took notes in a little pocket journal I kept hidden under the cushion of my recliner. Meanwhile, I started looking closer at things I used to ignore. Whenever Claire took a call outside, I paid attention to how long she was gone. When she typed away furiously on her laptop, I watched the way she'd angled the screen away from me. When she was scrolling on her phone at night, her thumb hovered fast, too fast, like she was deleting conversations on the fly. One afternoon while she was at the grocery store, I dragged myself into the home office. It took forever, moving slow and trying not to hurt myself, but I managed to get into the filing cabinet. Found bank statements. Credit card bills from accounts I didn't even know existed. A freaking brochure for moving companies tucked into the back of her desk drawer. Even found a printed email to her sister Rachel about starting fresh once N is taken care of. N being me, Nathan. The idiot husband laid up in a back brace while she built her new life without him. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Uploaded the files to a private cloud account Mark had helped me set up. I couldn't believe the scale of it. Claire wasn't just planning to leave, she was planning to vanish. Take Logan, take the money, and disappear like I was a bad memory. When I showed the files to Carter during our next video chat, he just nodded like he saw this every day. Good. Keep gathering. The more we have, the harder it'll be for her to contest anything. The next big step was setting up a new bank account. Mark helped me get it done. He drove me to a bank across town, one Claire had no ties to. The manager there, an older guy named Mr. Pritchard, listened patiently as I explained the situation. Didn't even blink. He helped me open a new account in just my name, set up special security alerts for any big transactions, and flagged the account so that large deposits like the settlement check would require manual verification. We also set up protocols on our existing joint accounts. Any withdrawal over $1,000 would now trigger an automatic text alert to my phone. Step by step, brick by brick, I was building a wall around what little I still had left. In the meantime, I went ahead and changed the beneficiary on my life insurance. Not to Mark, I wasn't stupid, but to a trust account for Logan's future college fund. That way, if anything happened to me, at least he'd be taken care of without Claire getting her hands on a cent. Every day was a tightrope walk. Claire started getting more restless. She'd ask if I'd heard anything new about the insurance payout. She'd suggest I call and push them to hurry up. She'd talk about how much better everything would be once we're financially stable again. I nodded. I smiled. I lied through my teeth. All the while, I was waiting. Waiting for that settlement check to hit. Waiting for the moment when the trap would finally spring shut. And deep down, under the numbness and the anger, there was a cold, steady feeling growing inside me. I wasn't the helpless man Claire thought I was anymore. The settlement check finally arrived on a Wednesday morning. I was sitting in the recliner, as usual, pretending to be half asleep when Claire came bursting through the door, mail clutched in her hand like she'd just found the golden ticket. She tried to play it cool, casually setting the envelopes on the kitchen counter like it was any other day, but I could see her hands trembling from across the room. She picked up the big envelope again and walked over to me, smiling way too wide. "Good news, babe," she said. "It's here." I gave her my best groggy smile, the one I had perfected after weeks of pretending I was still too drugged up to think straight. "Oh, wow. That's really good," I mumbled, sounding appropriately dazed. Inside, though, my heart was hammering so loud I thought she might hear it. I took the envelope slowly, like my fingers hurt too much to work properly, and opened it. There it was, the check. $675,000. Made out to both our names. Requiring both our signatures. Claire practically vibrated with excitement next to me. "How soon can we deposit it?" she blurted out, barely able to contain herself. That right there should have been red flag number 5,000, but I just smiled and said maybe we should sit down that evening and talk about a plan for how to use the money. "You know, make sure we're smart about it," I said. She agreed immediately, way too quickly, that weird tight smile plastered on her face. But what she didn't know was that the trap was already set. 2 days before the check arrived, Mark had driven me to the bank again. I moved nearly all of our accessible savings, about $112,000, into my private account. I left just enough in the joint accounts to keep Claire from noticing anything strange during casual glances. On top of that, Mr. Pritchard, the bank manager, had set it up so that any large deposit, like, say, a $675,000 insurance settlement, would be flagged for manual approval. Meaning Claire couldn't just dump it in and withdraw the cash before I even realized. That night, after dinner, which Claire barely touched because she was too jittery, we sat at the kitchen table. Claire even brought her laptop with a neat little spreadsheet she'd made. She had it all planned out, a big chunk for my medical expenses, a chunk for house repairs, and, most interestingly, a line item labeled Fresh Start Fund, $300,000. I asked her innocently what that was. She gave me that tight smile again. "You know, for emergencies. Or opportunities. Just in case. Right? Opportunities. Like moving to San Diego with my settlement money while leaving me flat on my ass." I nodded like an idiot and asked a few more husband questions. How much were the medical bills exactly? Had she gotten quotes for the roof repair? Normal stuff. Claire answered everything, a little too fast, a little too eager. She thought she had me right where she wanted me. And maybe a part of her still loved the Nathan she thought she married, the one who made dumb financial mistakes and trusted her without question. The one who couldn't imagine she'd stab him in the back. But that Nathan was gone. After a while, I pretended to be tired and asked her to help me get ready for bed. She tucked me in, kissed my forehead like a saint, and headed back downstairs. The second she was out of earshot, I grabbed my phone and texted Carter. She took the bait, moving to phase 2. The next morning, I told Claire I wasn't feeling great and asked if she could go to the bank and deposit the check for us. I played it up, acting feeble, wincing when I moved, making it seem like walking was just too much. She practically sprinted out the door, check in hand. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was Mr. Pritchard. He asked, loud enough that if Claire was nearby she could hear, whether I authorized the deposit. I confirmed, and he told me, exactly as planned, that due to the size of the check, the bank would be placing a 3 to 5 business day hold on the funds. Standard policy for large deposits, he said. The timing couldn't have been better. Claire walked back in just in time to hear the end of the conversation. I hung up, smiled at her, and said, "It's gonna take a few days to clear, but at least it's finally moving." The look on her face. I'll never forget it. Like a gambler who just realized the casino had rigged the game against her from the start. That night, Claire cracked. She poured herself a huge glass of wine, way earlier than usual, and by dinner she was 3 glasses deep. Sloppy. Angry. She picked a fight over the takeout I ordered, said it was cold, said I didn't even try to help around the house, said I was just wallowing in self-pity instead of getting better. Then somehow, the argument twisted into an attack on our entire marriage. How I'd held her back. How I'd never supported her dreams. How I forced her to live in this nothing town when she could have had a real life somewhere better. 19 years of resentment poured out like venom. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just sat there, nodding, letting her dig her own grave. When she finally wound down, face flushed, eyes glassy, I asked one simple question. "Is there something you want to tell me about California?" Dead silence. It was like someone had sucked all the air out of the room. Her face went from furious red to sheet white in 2 seconds flat. She stammered something about not knowing what I was talking about. I just shrugged. Said I was tired. Said I needed my meds. Let her squirm in the tension. That night, Claire slept in the guest room. Or at least, she pretended to. I heard her pacing half the night. The next day, she was suddenly sweet again. Made me breakfast. Brought me coffee exactly how I liked it. Apologized for letting stress get to her. I smiled. I forgave her. Just like she thought I would. Meanwhile, Mark came over that afternoon. We called in a locksmith. Changed every lock on the house. Set up a new code on the garage door. We moved all the important documents and valuables to Mark's place for safekeeping. Family photos. Legal paperwork. My dad's old watch. Anything I couldn't stand the thought of losing when Claire realized her plan had crumbled. The countdown had officially begun. And I wasn't scared anymore. The next morning, after Claire had stormed out and slammed the door so hard that a picture fell off the wall, the house felt eerily quiet. Logan barely spoke to me. He kept retreating into his room, headphones on, trying to drown out the chaos that had invaded his life. I spent most of that day lying in my recliner, listening to my phone vibrate with notification after notification. Voicemails, texts, Claire trying every emotional lever she could pull. First it was apologies, then anger, then bargaining. I didn't respond to any of it. By the afternoon, my lawyer Carter called to confirm everything was filed. The divorce papers were legally served. Claire could scream, threaten, beg, or cry all she wanted, the ball was already rolling. Around sunset, Logan came downstairs holding his phone. "Dad," he said, voice cracking a little. "Mom keeps texting me. She says you're trying to steal everything from her." I took a deep breath. "Come sit down," I said. He sat across from me, fidgeting with the hem of his hoodie. I told him everything. As gently as I could, I explained how his mom had been planning to take off to California with the insurance money, leaving me behind. How I overheard the conversation that night on the couch. How I hadn't reacted because I needed to protect us both. Logan stared at me, wide-eyed. Then he just collapsed inward. Like a balloon deflating. "I didn't mean to mess things up," he whispered. I didn't know what to do. I leaned forward as much as my back allowed and gripped his shoulder. "You didn't do anything wrong, Logan," I said firmly. "You told the truth. You saved me. You saved us." He wiped his face with his sleeve and nodded. That night, we ordered pizza and binge-watched some ridiculous zombie show on Netflix. For a little while, it felt almost normal. Just a dad and his kid trying to find a new rhythm in a life neither of them asked for. A few days later, Claire came back to collect her things. She didn't come alone. Her sister Rachel was with her and, to my surprise, so was some guy I didn't recognize. He stayed out in the car, sunglasses on, engine running. I didn't need to guess who he was. Claire barely looked me in the eye as she packed. She moved around the house quickly, grabbing clothes, jewelry, personal items. Rachel trailed behind her, silent, eyes glued to the floor. At one point, Claire paused in the hallway looking at me where I sat, back brace still locked in place, cane leaning against the armrest. "Are you taking your medication properly?" she asked, voice oddly tender. I stared at her for a long moment. "You don't get to worry about that anymore," I said simply. She looked like she might say something else, some last appeal, some desperate plea, but in the end, she just nodded and turned away. The mediation came 2 weeks later. Carter was a machine. He laid everything out cleanly, methodically. I would keep the house. I would retain the majority of the settlement for ongoing medical expenses and lost wages. Claire would take her hidden credit card debt with her. We would share legal custody of Logan, but he would live primarily with me according to his own preference. Claire's lawyer, a sharp-dressed guy who probably charged $500 an hour, tried to push for more. Claimed Claire had sacrificed her career for the marriage. Demanded spousal support, half the settlement, part of the house's equity. But Carter had the evidence. He had the timelines. He had the trail of hotel receipts, hidden credit cards, job applications in San Diego. The mediator, a tired-looking woman who had probably seen 100 battles just like ours, steered the conversation toward compromise. After hours of painful back and forth, an agreement was reached. Claire would receive $175,000 from the settlement. I would keep the house, the remaining $500,000, and full control over how it was allocated to my medical expenses, living costs, and Logan's college fund. Logan would remain living with me with flexible visitation based on his comfort level. When it was done, when the signatures were dry and the mediator gave us both copies of the paperwork, Claire caught me in the parking lot. "Do you think," she asked, "that maybe someday we could be friends again? For Logan's sake?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I felt nothing anymore. No love, no hatred, just a deep, aching exhaustion. "Maybe someday," I said, "but not today, and probably not for a long time." She nodded like she understood, but I don't think she ever truly did. The divorce was finalized last week. No dramatic courtroom showdown. No yelling matches. Just a notary stamp and a heavy folder full of legal documents ending 19 years of marriage. Logan is doing better. He's been seeing a counselor who specializes in helping kids through divorce. He's starting to hang out with his friends again, smiling more, laughing a little. Last weekend, he even had dinner with his mom. He came home quiet, thoughtful, but not broken. I count that as a win. As for me, I'm healing. Slowly. 3 days a week at physical therapy. I can move around the house with just a cane now. Still use the walker for longer distances, but every small victory feels huge. Mark still comes by to help with stuff I can't handle alone. Old friends, the ones who ghosted during the worst of it, have started to resurface now that the drama's settled. Funny how that works. The settlement money is safely invested now, managed by a professional recommended by my bank. I'm not living large, not even close, but for the first time in years, I feel financially safe. The house needs work. Roof repairs are scheduled next month. Paint's peeling in a few places, but it's mine. Mine and Logan's. Sometimes, late at night, when the pain flares up worse than usual and I can't sleep, I scroll through old photos on my phone. I wonder when exactly the cracks started showing in the marriage. I wonder if there was a moment when I could have saved it. Mostly, though, I focus on what's ahead. Building something new, something honest. One slow, painful, stubborn step at a time.